Good mythical afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Ayala with another vlog for you. This vlog is titled Declaring Independence, the American Revolution from Lexington and Concord to the Declaration of Independence. So as always, please make sure you're writing your notes and that you're putting your comment for the vlog question at the end of this, somewhere in the doobly-doo, over here, over there, or down here, wherever it may be this year. So anyway, please make sure you sit back, relax, and view this as many times as you need to be successful in my class. So to start with is we know that Boston was under martial law, and what happened is the American militiamen started to slowly but surely start surrounding Boston after Lexington and Concord. So the British, of course, had to retreat to the city because they cannot control the countryside. And so what happens is the Americans start to attack Fort Ticonderoga, which is led by Ethan Allen and his backwoodsmen, known as the Green Mountain Boys. And they take all these artillery pieces, these cannons. We don't have very much ammunition, though. And what happens is they drag that over Boston, and they sit them on the heights. And from there, we get what is called the Second Continental Congress. So, back to the Second Continental Congress. Sorry for that jump cut. The first thing that's really important is that it starts to work like a government. It starts trying to figure out how to actually get this up and running, this war, to protect ourselves from our British tyrant, King George III, which we did not like at this time. So the first thing is, they form the Continental Army, which is led by General George Washington. So Washington, who originally was a British lieutenant, is now the American general for the army. From there, they also start printing money to be able to pay our troops and to pay our friends overseas who we are more or less getting loans from to get stuff. But what really makes this important is that government part, that it actually starts working like a government and tries to actually do what a government does. From there, we get to the Battle of Bunker Hill. And what happens is all these militiamen are over on these heights overlooking Boston. And we get General Howe, the British commander, who orders an attack. The Americans don't have really very much ammunition. And we get one of the most famous quotes by Colonel Prescott. As the British are coming up the heights, he yells, "Don't shoot till you see the white of their eyes." And it becomes one of the most famous sayings in this war. One of many, I should say. And what ends up happening is the British end up winning this, but what it does is shows that the militia can and will stand up to the professional army. The British thought the Americans were just going to throw down their weapons and run and scream and run away. But they didn't expect that these back hills country bumpkins, as they thought of us, would stand their ground and actually fight against a professional army and make them try really, really hard for this battle. So even though we lost, it showed that we actually have the spine to stand up against the British and their army. July 1775, Congress sends what is known as the Olive Branch Petition to London. And what this petition says is, hey, here's an olive branch. Let's stop fighting and figure out how we can actually deal with these issues so that we aren't fighting and destroying things that we don't need to do. Because aren't we all British, and shouldn't we be actually joining together? King George III just refuses and instead decides to block all the American ports using his navy and sends some Hessians, which are German mercenaries from the German Principality of Hesse, to America to fight on his behalf. And our response to this was George Washington prepares to invade Canada, and he sends one of our generals, Benedict Arnold, who sees Quebec, and that fails. So, and this won't be the first time that we try to invade Canada and fail. This we'll try again in the War of 1812, and we will fail again. So, meanwhile, in Boston, we still control the heights, even though we did lose Bunker Hill. And what happens, Ethan Allen's dragging all these cannons from Fort Ticonderoga through the winter, up and down mountains, over all frozen rivers and whatnot, and he drags them over to the mountains, to the heights over Boston. And even though we don't have really any ammunition for it, I mean, in the middle, you gotta think about this. All of a sudden, in the middle of the night, all these cannons start appearing and pointing towards Boston. And the British were like, oh crud, I have to leave, or we're going to get burned down. And the cannons will just destroy everything. So the British flee. Then we get Common Sense by Thomas Paine, which he writes of some pamphlets that persuade Americans to join the patriot cause. And the major thing that's important is that he states that all monarchies are corrupt. And why is it important? Like I just stated, it helped convince Americans to call for independence. Really cool stuff. Sorry about that. Then what happens is Congress is still undecided. They actually want to declare independence until we get Richard Henry Lee of Virginia asking for a resolution in the Second Continental Congress to be passed so we can become independent. So the committee makes a draft of the Declaration of Independence, which is headed by Thomas Jefferson. So Thomas Jefferson does write the Declaration of Independence on July 4th of 1776. We adopt the Declaration of Independence and we send it over to Britain, more or less just saying, hey, you know what, Britain? This relationship's over. We're done. You are too tyrannical. You're putting people in my house. You're trying to steal my money. You're taking my stuff. Go the heck away. And what's really kind of neat about the Declaration of Independence is it's based off of John Locke and Hobbes, which he states that once a government disregards human rights, as in our government must protect us, and if it refuses to protect us, we have the right to abolish it, and we must abolish that government. We do that in the United States now. We vote, and that's the way that we get a new government in office if we dislike what they are doing. So for the vlog question, real quick, what do you believe was the biggest achievement of the Continental Congress, and explain why? Either the idea of working like a government, the Declaration of Independence, Continental Army with George Washington, printing money. You could also talk about the idea of getting ambassadors, anything like that. And as always, don't forget to be awesome.